Hello, this is Joseph Carlson, and this is episode 124 of Gaming with Grief. And I'm calling this episode the Lathe of Heaven review. But before I get into that, let me remind you guys that this podcast will hit my website, www.gamingwithgrief.com, Monday morning at 7 a.m. Go there, leave a comment, let me know what you think of the show. Or you can go to the Apple iTunes Store or the Google Play Store and subscribe to the podcast there. It's the Gaming with Grief podcast with Joseph Carlson. It's got a black background with smoke. Or you can go to gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. Drop me a line there. Let me know what you think of the show, what I can do to improve. And I'm on Twitter at JustLittleJoe, and I will try to get better about promoting it. But if you guys notice, this episode is going up a little early because I'm going out of town, and I want to have everything kind of done and kind of published when I leave. So you're getting the podcast a couple days early, but it will still hit my website at 7 a.m. on Monday morning, like I said before. But yeah, to put it simply, this is a book called The Lathe of Heaven. It was written by Ursula K. She was an author that passed away about 3 years ago, and she was a prolific science fiction writer. She wrote several books like the Ursula series, The Lathe of Heaven, on and on and on. She won several awards. I'm just going to read a little bit from Wikipedia because I did some other research, but this is a nice, concise way to sum up the book, Lathe of Heaven. And like everything that I do, this kind of will be a spoiler cast. But what I'll do is generally go over the book in the beginning and talk about maybe her style and things like that. And again, this is Gaming with Grief, and if you tuned in and said, why are you doing a book? I do some book reviews, but it's few and far between. I think this is maybe the third book review I've done, maybe the second. The reason why I'm doing this is because my therapist said, you should read Lathe of Heaven. So when you're going to therapy and someone says, you should read this, I consider it almost like a homework assignment, but I'm kind of happy to say that I really enjoyed this book. There were some things I missed because sometimes it's very subtle, some of the writing and things, so I actually had to read some websites and things like Wikipedia and some other pages to kind of fill in the gaps of what I missed. But I'm just going to read this little blurb from Wikipedia just to give you guys like a quick little recap of the novel. Again, this is from Wikipedia. If you just type it into Google, this is what comes up. The Lathe of Heaven is a 1971 science fiction novel by American writer Ursula K. Le Guin. The plot concerns a character whose dreams alter past and present reality. The story was serialized in an American science fiction magazine, Amazing Stories. The novel received nominations for the 1972 Hugo and the 1971 Nebula Award and won the Locust Award for Best Novel in 1972. 2 television film adaptations were released, the PBS production, The Lathe of Heaven, and Lathe of Heaven 2002, a remake produced by A&E Network. Now, what I've heard is that the Lathe of Heaven from the 1980 PBS production, Ursula K. was actually involved in that, and she actually likes it more, which makes sense. If the author is involved in something, they have obviously, make sure that maybe some of the main themes and characters are some of the plot threads are followed and things like that. And I read that, which I'll probably watch after this. I didn't want it to color how I reviewed the novel, but the movie apparently has been archived on YouTube. So you can, I guess, type in 1980 PBS production of Lathe of Heaven and watch the movie there. I'm going to watch it when I come back from out of town because I want to see, if the author says this is a good adaptation of my work and, we can find it and watch it, I might as well do that. So, yeah, let's talk about the Lathe of Heaven. So, like the small description read, George Orr is the main character. He is someone who has been dreaming, and in the beginning of the novel, this is going to be not really spoiler. This happens in the first couple pages. He's been taking meds because he's been dreaming too much. And he goes to a doctor, Harbin, I think is how to pronounce it. It's, anyway. He wants the doctor to make it so he stops dreaming because it's horrific, and that's basically the setup for the novel. Now, I have been I've been recommended Ursula Guin many, many times. And the Earthsea series keeps coming up. People keep, like, not just my therapist, but other people, like, you should really read this. It's really good. Ursula Guin, reading about her life, I mean, obviously this isn't a biography of her, but she was really kind of ahead of her time, and I know a lot of people say that. But reading about her life, you really see that. I read a little bit about her. Apparently, her father, I believe, he was a anthropologist, and so he literally studied ancient civilizations. Her mom was a psychologist. Basically, she writes people that are from different ethnicities and backgrounds, and this was like the 70s. And not to say that never happened, but it seems refreshing that these are just people in the world, like this is just how it is. I will say, very generally, a lot of people said the novel was very prescient. There's a lot of things in the novel, when I get into the spoiler chat, I'll talk about, that was weird reading it now when you're like, she dotted this stuff in the 70s and it is now, not, and this stuff's all kind of like coming true. Again, a lot of people say that about science fiction writers, but it did really blow me away. And a quick side note, this is actually a very short novel. It's only about 180 pages. I've been working nights and trying to squeeze it in here and there, but I was able to finish it in like probably, 2 or 3 days, reading for a few hours. It's not bad. And I think that, especially towards the end, I think I mentioned this before, but when you get to the end of something, like, I speed up. So I think that's why I had to consult Wikipedia and some online resources, just random websites. I didn't write them down because I feel that I missed things in the novel that were important later on. It's like, did I miss someone saying this? Because you kind of I picked up, and since it's a short novel, about page 150, like, my reading just kind of like picked up. I will say I love her style. I definitely now want to check out the Earthsea series. And there's like a pull quote on the front of the book, the copy that I got, the edition. Basically, somebody said, this was good when I was young, and now it's heartbreaking. Because it really has to deal with these idea of dreams, reality, how we have control over our dreams. Since this guy can control reality with his dreams, what is real, what is, what has been, in the first few pages, you find out that he's been doing this for a while. And so I guess, I can't really talk more. I recommend the novel. Please go read it. I got it from the library. I tell people all the time, please go to the library. It's a great resource. Your tax money pays for it. You can get tons of free movies, and which I got, novels, everything, magazines, manga, like anime, tons of stuff you want. It's all there at the library. Go to the library. So I know this intro is very short, but again, I didn't really want to spoil the book for people that haven't read it. But if you have read it, I'm going to go into the spoiler chat of the book. And so again, I've done this before. Full disclosure, I'm going to spoil Lathe of Heaven, or at least what I got out of it. I'm not going to go over every big plot beat, but I'm going to talk enough about the novel that it'll probably be somewhat ruined. I accidentally read ahead in one of the wiki pages because the way our minds work, I was checking out her biography information. The Lathe of Heaven was on there. There was a quick plot summary, and just by glancing at it, I saw like a spoiler, but it still made things surprising later in the novel. So again, this is your last warning. I'm going to start spoiling the novel, and there we go. So this isn't where I do a big thing where like the main character dies or something. But I will say, so the idea that Orr is able to control reality. He goes to a psychologist, and I do like that the psychologist in this is really kind of poked fun at a bit with, if I understood reading about Ursula Guin, her family, her mother especially being a psychologist, it seemed like she kind of like poked at them a little bit, because the psychologist, Haber, I just got his name right, he goes in these long speeches that are 2 or 3 pages about, what the brain does and how Orr is behaving. But obviously, if somebody comes into your office and says, my dreams can affect reality, you're not going to believe them. And so what I thought was amazing about it was that it kind of brings the reader into this world, because you don't the first time you hear talking about all this stuff and how he's able to change reality, it's through like a flashback, and he talks about he wanted his aunt to leave, basically, and he just wanted her to leave. So he had a dream where she I think died. And so, but everybody knew, it was like, oh, she's been dead this many months. So it's like his brain retroactively changed time. Haber starts calling these effective dreams, because he makes or dream in his office with something called the augmenter, which it's obviously a lot of science fiction stuff. And what it does is it makes or dream of this mountain, of Mount Hood. The book takes place in Portland, Oregon. I guess Guin lived there, so she knew it pretty intimately. But or dreams of, instead of the mountain behind him, that it is actually a horse, because the Dr. Haber says, I want you to dream of a horse. I want it to be relaxing. Well, there's a horse in the picture now. And since this is the first time that Orr has been honest and told someone he can do this, and has been with someone while he dreams, because they make it sound like he's kind of been a loner his whole life. Since he's with someone the moment that the dream changes, the Dr. Haber understands and sees clearly what he can do to reality, that he actually changes reality. And it's a little bit confusing in Haber's mind. Did I just see that? Was that picture had always been the mountain, but now it's the horse? But then he starts playing with Orr like he's a toy, and giving him all these suggestive dreams, like try this, like these very suggestive things. He's deleting a lot of the tapes of their sessions. Whenever he talks to Orr, he says, you're just around the bend. We almost got you healed, but then, you won't have these terrible dreams anymore, these effective dreams. You'll just dream normally, but we come to find out that he has finagled his way into making himself more important in the institute he's in, and he works at a different office, and Orr has a nice place, but now the Dr. Haber has been promoted and is running things, and it's just been that way for 6 months, because lo and behold, everybody just remembers everything being this way, except for Haber and Orr, because they were together when Haber gave those suggestions to his patient. Orr realizes more and more that it's benefiting the doctor more than it's benefiting the patient. And so Orr starts to get mad. He goes to a lawyer, Lake, Heather Lake. I hope I'm saying that name right. But she basically says, well, this is weird. Like, what you're saying doesn't make any sense. Obviously, nobody would believe he said that. And it's very relatable. But she said, this is kind of like where the big turn in the novel comes, where she says, how about we just say that I'm there to examine what he's doing, to make sure he's above board. I've done this to psychologists before. I've looked at their operation. I've made sure that they're not ripping people off or doing something terrible to them. So I'll just go and I'll observe. Well, that's when the doctor really takes a swing. Haber really takes a swing with a massive effective dream, and basically tells Orr, listen, I know in your life and right now you're feeling very claustrophobic, and you just feel like everything just feels overcrowded. Just don't let that bother you. Just brush it away. You now have enough space to do whatever you want. Don't worry about that. And they do go into Haber's psychological, like his thoughts in that book. Maybe if I do this right, it'll work. And it's very suggestive and very subliminal. But Orr wakes up, and the lawyer, Lake, is at the window, and she looks very shocked. And when Orr wakes up, he says, you remember that, I was dreaming about the plague again, the plague we had. And Haber's like, right, the plague. Well, what happened was basically Orr just wiped about, 6 million people off the face of the earth, because his dream effectively made there be a plague, so there's no overpopulation. And that's kind of where everything starts to go downhill for Orr, the patient. And he keeps seeing that Haber is using him to get more and more things. There's war in the Middle East, which was crazy reading that. There's also been food shortages. Pollution is terrible. People are packed into the cities because it's like really the only place where there's infrastructure. So there's war in the Middle East. And the patient Orr says, it's terrible. He's talking to Haber one day. This is terrible. What do you think's going to happen? And so what happened is Haber tells him, don't worry about the war. I'm sure they'll find a peaceful solution. He kind of suggests this to them. Orr goes to sleep again with this augmenter and has a dream of a massive fire in the sky. And he sees something. And what happened was some aliens, when he wakes up, he comes to find out that aliens have actually attacked the moon. And so instead of people on Earth fighting each other, they're now fighting they're fighting aliens. So it takes the problem off of our plate and puts it somewhere else. This kind of descends into more and more madness, and it gets crazier and crazier and crazier. Finally, the humans have an interaction with the aliens. And I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the word. Maybe if I watch the movie and see how the aliens in the movie pronounce it. But basically, they see Orr for who he is. He's running with these aliens. He describes them as like these turtle-like creatures in these suits because obviously they probably can't breathe their air. And they keep using this one word to describe him. It sounds like, I think he translates, Orr himself, the patient, translates it as a dreamer. He's like, so are you saying that I'm a dreamer? And they're saying, well, because they're also learning English, and they're like, it's hard to say, we can't really say, but, you are special, and you basically need help. You can't do this all alone. And so there's this amazing culmination in the novel where Orr wishes for basically all this to go away, but he wishes Haber in a way to see what's been happening or give him some of his power. This is where I had to look up online. I was a little bit confused, but basically the Dr. Haber hooks himself up to the machines and says, I can replicate everything you're doing, or leaves. Haber hooks himself up to the machines, tries to replicate what is happening, and reality, literally down the middle, splits. So everything is kind of half done. Everything's half blown up. It's half destroyed. Like half the people in the city are hurt. People are going to support groups to try to figure out what happened. They're in this beautiful, picturesque city with the mountain in the distance, and even though they'd gone through troubles with plague and all that stuff, it was just a shock for one day for something like this to happen. And so people are just blown away that all this is happening. Or the original patient goes to see Haber, and Haber is in an insane institute, an asylum, a mental institute. And he has gone insane because he was there at the crack of the world, basically, and seeing everything unravel. He doesn't really know what to do or how to deal with himself and things like that. And that's basically the novel. But I think what I want to talk about now is there's this idea in the novel about what are dreams, what is reality. There's these quotes like Confucius, Lao Tzu, who wrote like the art, not the Sun Tzu, who wrote like the Art of War, like the Taoist philosophy. And there's this idea in the novel between Orr the patient and Haber the doctor, of them going back and forth. Orr keeps pushing back against the doctor, saying, it is not our job to decide how things go. Every time we try to make something better, it just gets worse. Things have to run their course. People, die all the time. Like, maybe we can't fix pollution. Maybe this was how it was supposed to be. Haber gives him all these excuses, like if you had, a serum that could cure someone of a snake bite in the woods, you should give it to them, And they go back and forth, and it's this idea that Haber looks down on Orr and even makes comments in the novel about, how is his power given to someone so simple that doesn't see the machinations of the world, and I alone can kind of guide everybody in this, this new way, this new path that I'm rewriting everything. And I think it is this really great thing of philosophy of, there was a phrase that I looked up, I didn't write it down, but it's this idea that I alone, it is what I want, my will is the one thing that is true and right, and individual, my individual feelings overwrite everybody in the whole world. And Orr isn't saying, no, everybody deserve a say, you have to talk to these people. What he's saying is some things are out of our control. And I think, at least that's what I took from it. Again, this is me interpreting it after reading the text and having to read things online. And I think that's a powerful message. In our lives, things are out of our control. and you have to come to grips with what is around you and your reality. And it is a great thing for a novel to talk about this. Again, this isn't the first novel to talk about this. This did win quite a lot of awards, though. So apparently people saw in this something, this idea that, again, the acceptance of things out of your control, and the sheer power, again, of Haber saying, I am the arbiter of, what is right and just because I am a learned man. And I do think there's some great critiques of philosophy in there, and well, not philosophy, but of psychiatry. I go to a therapist. I enjoy going to my therapist. I think he has a lot to say, but I think it's this idea that you are so smart, you think you are on top of everything, and you need to have that moment of humility and say, I don't, I've talked about several times in this podcast. You need to have that moment of humility and say, I don't know, I don't got it. I don't have control of this. I can't really stop this. I don't know what's going on. It's stuff like that to me is very very powerful. And I think I'm going to read it again. Maybe I'll purchase it probably in a little bit. I just finished it again. I got it go to the library. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Go to the library. It's great. But I'll probably watch that movie when I come back from vacation because I want to see what happens and then how I want to see, actually, strangely enough, I want to see the word that the aliens use to describe or the dreamer, because they keep saying, this is who you are. They kind of see him, and he has this really strange part of the novel where he's like, well, if I created these aliens and they're seeing me for who I am, is it part of me that wants me to break free of all this? Or since I created them and they're walking around, free will type thing, having their own whatever, are they really seeing something in me? Is this something that was created, or, did I do this? I don't understand. I don't understand how I did this. And there's this existential thing in the novel about reality and fiction, and I really like it. And again, it's a short novel. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's one of those things that the more I sit with it, the more thoughts I have with it. If you have read the novel, let me know. Again, write in to gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. That would be great, because I want to get, it's weird reading a message board. I'd rather have like a discussion with somebody about, this is crazy. Wasn't this crazy? This section right here. I think that's it this week, guys. I've sat with it only for a day, and I'm still thinking about it. So I think this is something, as time goes on, I'm going to sit with it and have new thoughts. But I wanted to give a review of it because, again, if your therapist tells you to read something, you probably should read it. And it was a good recommendation. I'm glad he did. And now, for the past few years, people recommending Ursula K to me, I definitely want to check out more books in her series. So if you like science fiction, try her out. Try the Lathe of Heaven. I know I've ruined it. Maybe this has just been enough for you to get interested to read the whole thing, because I didn't divulge everything. There's things in there that I just didn't cover. So anyway, I think that's it this week, guys. If you guys remember, or I just want to remind you guys that this podcast will hit my website, www.gamingwithgrief.com. Monday morning at 7 a.m. Go there, leave a comment, let me know what you think of the show. Or you can go to Apple iTunes or the Google Play Store, subscribe to the podcast there, give me the likes, the stars, things like that. Or you can go to gwgpodfellows at gmail.com, drop me a line. If you read the book, let me know. Or if you want me to talk about something else, or you want me to cover, or you want my opinion on something, drop me a line there and let me know. Also, you can find me on Twitter at JustLittleJoe. And that's it this week, guys. Again, this is coming out just a little bit early, but it'll still hit the website on Monday morning. And I will see you guys next week. Have a safe weekend. Have a safe time. And I think that's it. Bye.